Xianxia, it's been hard on you. At night, Lin Feng and Chu Chun could finally find some peace. What's hard for me? I was just leading armed robots. Those armed robots were the ones fighting. Chu Chun had put it casually, but Lin Feng knew that letting an ordinary professional martial artist who had not even broken the genetic lock participate in such a major event that concerned the fate of humanity worldwide was actually a huge pressure in itself. Fortunately, Chu Chun was a strong girl and could withstand such pressure. Xianxia, you've been quite lax regarding martial arts recently. You can actually try to break the genetic lock now. Lin Feng naturally wanted to help Chu Chun break the genetic lock. But even though he had undergone for life transitions, it was actually very difficult for him to help Chu Chun. He could only give Chu Chun a large amount of resources. I've already had some vague hint of insight in the League of Guardians. Perhaps I'll be able to break the genetic lock soon. You don't have to worry about me. My goal is to catch up to, and even surpass you. Chu Chun also clenched her fists tightly. However, even sages probably would not dare to think of surpassing Lin Feng. I might have to leave for a while tomorrow. Lin Feng was a little hesitant. He had just returned and accompanied Chu Chun for only a day, yet he was about to leave again. Even he felt that he owed Chu Chun a lot. However, Chu Chun said generously, "Go ahead. I know you're doing this to protect all of humanity. You can get on with business. I'll always support you." Chu Chun was very sensible and understanding. Perhaps this was why Lin Feng liked her. The next day, Lin Feng woke up early. He did not wake Chu Chun up, but left on the airship alone. Lin Feng's destination was the North Mountain Base. Back when Lin Feng was deployed to the South Mountain Base as a penalty, he might never have thought that he would have such a fortuitous encounter. He had never even thought about undergoing for life transitions. But now, Lin Feng had already undergone for life transitions. It had only been 2 years since he entered the Myriad Academy. In 2 years, he had experienced things that would take many martial artists a century, or even 2 centuries. However, Lin Feng was not complacent at all. This was because Lin Feng had seen too much. He naturally knew that humanity was actually in imminent danger. Forget about the behemoth of Armageddon, humanity might not even be a match for those dire beasts. Human civilization was far from developing to the point of prosperity, and Lin Feng did not have the privilege to be proud. This time, Lin Feng was going to the North Mountain Base to accept Bamon's legacy. According to Longbetham, only after 4 life transitions could one accept Bamon's legacy and become Bamon's registered disciple. However, not even Longbetham knew what the legacy was about. Swoosh! Lin Feng flew past the South Mountain Base and then the North Mountain Base. He had no intention of going to the South Mountain or the North Mountain Base to catch up. His status was different now. Even if he could still treat his former companions and good friends with his initial attitude, those companions and good friends probably could not treat him with their initial attitude anymore. The higher one's status, the fewer those who could understand and have heartfelt relations with them. Soon, Lin Feng's airship landed in a wilderness. Beneath it was Longbetham's spaceship, buried underground. With Longbetham, Lin Feng naturally accessed the underground spaceship smoothly. After this, Lin Feng would bring the spaceship back to the League of Guardians. After all, he was already the strongest person among humans. So what if they knew some of his secrets? He already had enough confidence. Crunch. In the airship, Longbetham's true form came forward. Lin Feng, congratulations on meeting the conditions to accept Master's legacy in just 2 years. Longbetham's true form was a mechanical life form. It actually looked like a robot, but it possessed intelligence and was a true life form. In the past, Lin Feng could not understand what a mechanical life form was. But now, Lin Feng could clearly sense a trace of obscure life force emanating from Longbetham's true form. Longbetham was indeed a genuine life form. However, the way mechanical life forms existed was indeed very miraculous. At least for now, Lin Feng could only confirm that Longbetham was a mechanical life form. However, he did not know what was going on with mechanical life forms. Lin Feng, you once obtained Master's mental guidance technique and the combat body guidance technique, but those were not Master's true legacy. Master's true legacy can only be obtained after 4 life transitions. However, before accepting the legacy, you have to answer a question from me first. What question? Once you accept the legacy, you will be Master's registered disciple. Are you willing to become Master's registered disciple? Of course I'm willing. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. How could Lin Feng not be willing to be the disciple of a great galactic lifeform? Very good. Actually, this is just a routine inquiry. It has no impact. You can accept the legacy now. Longbetham led Lin Feng to a secret chamber. A stone flickering with an iridescent light floated in the secret chamber. It looked very mysterious and beautiful. Longbetham had long disappeared. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He knew that this strange iridescent contained the true legacy of a great galactic lifeform. Hence, Lin Feng slowly calmed his emotions and approached the iridescent stone. He extended his hand and clenched the iridescent stone gently. Boom! Lin Feng's mind shook slightly. Then, as if his consciousness was out of his control, he entered a starry sky. The stars spun. Lin Feng felt as if he was in the vast cosmos. The vast universe was cold and lonely. Lin Feng could see the huge planets and the magnificent galaxies. With a thought, his figure quickly shuttled through them. He seemed to have passed through galaxy after galaxy. Lin Feng's speed was incredible, but his consciousness was very clear. He could clearly remember every galaxy he had passed through and every planet he had passed by. This was like a route. After traveling for an unknown period of time, Lin Feng finally saw a vast and dazzling galaxy ahead. Among them was an incomparably huge planet that seemed to be larger than some stars. It was spectacular, magnificent, and beautiful. Little fellow, this is planet Bamond of the Bamond Galaxy, the place you will ultimately need to arrive. A voice suddenly sounded in Lin Feng's ear. He looked up. What did he see? There was an eye, an unimaginably huge eye. Just the eye alone was 10 times larger than the massive planet Bamond in front of him. As for the back of his eyes, Lin Feng could no longer describe that head with words. In fact, this had already exceeded Lin Feng's previous understanding of huge. Who are you? Lin Feng was very shocked, but he still maintained his composure. Who am I? The huge head shook slightly, then revealed a smile. Its mouth opened like a black hole that could destroy a planet with almost a breath. I'm your mentor. Bamond. Bamond. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Of course he knew who Bamond was, and he also knew the significance of the name Bamond, the master of Longbetham, that great galactic life form. Bamond, how large is your body? Little fellow, it seems like you come from a desolate and backward world and know nothing about cultivation. The combat body of any galactic life form is comparable to a galaxy. Comparable to a galaxy. Lin Feng was shocked. Of course he knew what a galaxy meant, but he would rather he didn't. He did not even dare to imagine a life form as huge as a galaxy. No wonder Longbetham always had a look of reverence when mentioning Bamond. A galactic life form could indeed be considered great. Little fellow, there's no need to be shocked. Now is the precious time for impartation. The legacy I am giving you is a very important part of the cosmic cultivation system. Laws. Laws. That's right. Laws are the rules of the operation of cosmic celestial bodies. They are the manifestations of the workings of the universe. For example, why do celestial bodies rotate, why do stars collapse, and why does the universe give rise to cosmic storms? In truth, these are what laws are. We cultivators call it laws. They represent the true meaning of the workings of the universe and the essence of the universe. Those technological civilizations call them the supreme truth of the universe. They also study laws, but they utilize laws in certain tools they create, such as spaceships, planetary annihilation cannon, and so on. However, remember, only cultivators like us can master the ultimate truth of the universe and the supreme law. You cultivate the tidal combat body. This is the combat body I created according to cosmic catastrophes. The law that suits you is the law of tides. What is the law of tides? On some planets, tides are water, so you can comprehend the law of water. In some places, tides are light so you can comprehend the law of light. Some are cosmic catastrophes, then you can comprehend the law of certain catastrophes. Once one comprehends the law, it can increase the combat power of the tidal combat body and also assist in life transition. For example, at the rudimentary level, the law can improve the tidal combat body by 10 times. If one can comprehend the elementary planetary law, it can improve the tidal combat body by 100 times. The better the comprehension of laws, the greater the magnitude of increase in combat power. It is also very beneficial to life transitions. Little fellow, this is a projection I left here. There's not much time left. Watch carefully. I'll use the last bit of time to demonstrate the law of tides for you. As soon as Bamond finished speaking, Lin Feng felt the world spin. Bamond's massive body disappeared. However, a vast torrent swept over from the cosmos. Tide! Lin Feng was very shocked. He had seen the tides of seawater, but how could he have seen cosmic tides? The cosmic tides swept over majestically. Lin Feng stood in the cosmos, allowing the cosmic tide to wash over him continuously. However, this was not a true cosmic tide, but a demonstration by Bamond. The goal was to let Lin Feng experience it properly and strive to comprehend the law of tides. If they encountered such a cosmic tide in the universe, even planetary lifeforms would probably be in imminent danger, let alone try to comprehend the law of tides. Lin Feng felt the cosmic tide constantly impact his consciousness, but his consciousness remained clear. This feeling was very miraculous. After the initial shock, he had already come to his senses and begun to comprehend the law of tides. This tide was majestic, but if one sensed it carefully, they could sense a strange power contained in the tide, as if all that was filtered in the tide was contained within. This was the law. Laws were the manifestation of the rules of the universe, such as the downward flow of rivers, thunders, dark clouds, violent winds, and so on. In a sense, these were also types of laws. Scientific explanations were all formulated based on some principle, but weren't scientific principles also laws? It was just that the names were different. Bamond even mentioned that technological civilizations also studied laws. However, by applying these laws to some tools, certain tools would possess terrifying power. Lin Feng was immersed in the cosmic tide. He really hoped that this demonstrated tide could last for a longer time, so that he could better comprehend the law of tides. Unfortunately, the tide demonstrated by Bamond quickly disappeared, and Lin Feng's consciousness quickly sank. Swoosh! When Lin Feng opened his eyes, he realized that he had already returned to the secret chamber. The iridescent stone in the secret chamber had already been pulverized and scattered all over the ground. The legacy of laws. So this is the foundation of the cosmic cultivation system. Lin Feng muttered softly. He had accepted Bamond's legacy. Only from now on could he be considered a true cosmic cultivator. Laws did not seem to have much to do with life transitions, but in reality, laws were the foundation of the workings of the universe, and the manifestation of all rules. After reaching the level of a planetary life form, laws would be very important if one wanted to continue undergoing life transitions. Moreover, in terms of combat power, laws were completely distinct from those cosmic behemoths that relied on instincts. For example, the Leviathan relied on its instincts to eventually become a planetary life form. However, such planetary life forms were simply too weak. Without comprehending laws, they were worlds apart from those true planetary life form cultivators. If a cosmic cultivator's comprehension of laws was at the primitive level, the enhancement of their combat body would reach 10 times. How terrifying would that be? For example, Lin Feng's current combat body was at 31 kilometers. If it was increased by 10 times, it would very likely be comparable to a combat body of 310 kilometers. Moreover, if one's comprehension of laws reached the planetary level, even the elementary stage of planetary law could increase the combat body by 100-fold. In comparison, as long as a cosmic cultivator comprehended the law, even if they had just undergone a life transition and become a planetary life form, they could easily defeat a cosmic behemoth like the Leviathan. They were both massive, but by relying on the comprehension of laws, cosmic cultivators could completely crush those cosmic behemoths at the same level. Cultivators became the rulers of the universe through their comprehension of laws. In fact, once one's comprehension of laws reached the planetary level, even without life transitions, they could rely on the extraordinary laws they grasped to interfere with a planet in some way. Interfering with the operation of the planet would simply be a piece of cake. Laws were divided into rudimentary level, planetary level. There were even more above the planetary level, such as galactic level, cosmic level, and so on. What Lin Feng wanted to comprehend was the law of tides, which increased combat power greatly. Of course, it was not that one could only comprehend one law. It was just that Lin Feng cultivated the tidal combat body, so comprehending the law of tides would greatly enhance the tidal combat body. However, if he comprehended other laws, it would basically offer no improvement to the tidal combat body. However, laws could sometimes be used as an aid. Take the law of void, for instance. If one had spatial talent and comprehended the law of void, they could even travel through the universe and construct spatial passages. They would be highly sought after talents in the entire universe. There were many cosmic laws, but comprehending them was not that easy. For example, even though Lin Feng had seen the law of tides demonstrated by Bamond with his own eyes, he actually did not have much comprehension of the law of tides. The path of law ahead was still very long. However, from today onwards, he would be Bamond's registered disciple. Lin Feng left the secret chamber. Outside, he saw Longbetham. "Master, you have already become Old Master's registered disciple. From now on, I will be your servant and accompany you all the way to the top." Longbetham genuflected. It was an ordinary mechanical life form to begin with. It received the opportunity of being chosen by Bamond and piloting the spaceship to the depths of the universe to search for life forms that could accept Bamond's legacy. This trip took billions of years. In fact, after it fell into this world, it felt that it might never be able to return to the universe again. However, later on, it met Lin Feng. It did not even think highly of Lin Feng at all. Unexpectedly, Lin Feng gave it a surprise. In just 2 years, he had already undergone 4 life transitions, obtained the true legacy of Bamond, and become Bamond's registered disciple. Once he obtained Bamond's true legacy, Longbetham would be Lin Feng's servant. Nothing would change. Lin Feng nodded and said to Longbetham, "Get up and follow me. If I have any hope of reaching the top of the universe in the future, I will naturally give you what you want." "Thank you, Master." Longbetham was also very happy. In 2 years, Lin Feng had completely proven his natural aptitude. Perhaps this natural aptitude was not something that Longbetham could see, but if Lin Feng had no natural aptitude at all, it would be impossible for him to undergo 4 life transitions in such a short period of time. This was not an achievement that could be achieved by relying on life core fragments alone. If one could undergo 4 life transitions, 5 life transitions, or even 6 life transitions just by relying on life core fragments, there would be countless planetary life forms in the entire universe. However, in reality, planetary life forms were still very rare in the scope of the entire universe. "Master, when are you planning to return to the Bamond galaxy?" Longbetham's eyes showed a trace of anticipation. Lin Feng naturally knew what Longbetham was thinking. Once he underwent 4 life transitions and accepted Bamond's legacy, he would be considered a true registered disciple of Bamond. Hence, Lin Feng could actually pilot the spaceship back to the Bamond galaxy now. How could Lin Feng not yearn for the vast cosmos? However, he was a human, and now, he was the hope of human civilization, the only hope of resisting the behemoth of Armageddon. It was impossible for him to leave just like that. "Longbetham, you know what I mean. I won't leave before I get rid of the behemoth of Armageddon. Moreover, even if I want to leave now, can I break the canopy?" Indeed, the canopy was a barrier that could not be bypassed no matter what. "Master, as long as you can comprehend the law of tides, reach the rudimentary level, and undergo the 5th life transition, you'll very likely be able to break the canopy. Dealing with the behemoth of Armageddon will naturally be easy," Longbetham said confidently. Lin Feng nodded as well. Longbetham was not exaggerating about this. When the law of tides reached the rudimentary level, the enhancement to the tidal combat body would reach tenfold. At that time, even if he had not undergone the 5th life transition, His combat power would be comparable to those lifeforms that had undergone 5 life transitions without comprehending laws. In addition, with the Spear of Destruction, dealing with the behemoth of Armageddon would not be too much of a problem. Moreover, if he underwent 5 life transitions, it would basically be a one-sided battle. However, the law of tides was incredibly profound. Even though Lin Feng had personally seen the Bemand demonstrate the law of tides once, he still had no clue now. By the way, do you have any weapons on your spaceship? Of course there are weapons. However, the energy was exhausted, and the weapon system cannot deal with the behemoth of Armageddon. Longbetham knew what Lin Feng was thinking, but its spaceship was not the most advanced spaceship of the mechanical civilization. It could not deal with the behemoth of Armageddon. If it were the most advanced spaceship of the mechanical civilization, forget about the behemoth of Armageddon, it could even blast a planet apart with a single shot. The spaceship can still manage to fly now, right? Let's return to the League of Guardians first. With that, Longbetham began to operate the spaceship. Rumble. With Longbetham's operation, the spaceship began to move. The entire ground shook. The martial artists from the North Mountain base immediately sensed it. What's going on? Are the terrestrial ants attacking? I think it's an earthquake. What's underground? Hurry up and inform the martial artists at the base to prepare for battle. The martial artists of the North Mountain base had been fighting with the terrestrial ants for many years. Although things had improved over the past few years, they still did not dare to let their guard down. The ground shook more and more violently. Then the ground began to crack, and a huge crack appeared. It was incomparably deep and dark, as if devils were crawling out of the underground crack. Swoosh! However, what flew out of the crack was not devils or dire beasts, but a huge airship. This airship looked very strange. It was oval, and its entire fuselage emitted a soft glow as it slowly flew out of the ground. What kind of airship is this? I've never seen it before. This probably isn't a human airship, right? Could it be an ancient civilization's airship? An ancient civilization. Are there ancient ruins under our North Mountain base? Many martial artists stared intently at the strange airship. The martial artists had even begun to report to their superiors. After all, such a strange occurrence was not something the North Mountain base could handle. However, as the airship slowly flew past the North Mountain base, a voice came from the airship. I'm Lin Feng. This airship is an ancient civilization airship I obtained. You do not have to be alarmed. With that, the airship left the North Mountain base. It's Sage Lin Feng? It's really Sage Lin Feng. I didn't expect him to find an airship from an ancient ruin here. Hold on. Back before Sage Lin Feng became a sage, he once helped our North Mountain base out. Was that when Sage Lin Feng discovered the ancient ruin? Some people already had some vague speculations. But so what if they had guessed it? The current Lin Feng was already fearless. He was already standing at the peak of humanity unless he disclosed his secret himself. No one could force it from him. Lin Feng returned to the League of Guardians. He handed over some of the authority of the League of Guardians to Longbetham and asked Longbetham to manage the League of Guardians headquarters. Lin Feng now trusted Longbetham completely. With Longbetham's management, Chu Chun also did not need to exhaust so much effort and energy. In order to deal with the crisis of the behemoth of Armageddon, Lin Feng began to manufacture a large number of armed robots. Moreover, he asked Longbetham to develop some technological weapons of the mechanical civilization. Of course, this was also a long process. Longbetham definitely could not build weapons of mass destruction like the planetary annihilation cannon, but it could create some conventional weapons of mechanical civilizations. This could increase the overall strength of humanity and also promote the technological development of humanity. As for whether they could deal with the behemoth of Armageddon, Lin Feng actually did not hold much hope. However, at least they could deal with those dire beasts. In the future, they could rely on these weapons alone to deal with dire beasts. Humans would become the rulers of this world. As for the cultivation methods of humans, Lin Feng still felt that the potential of martial arts was too small. However, the combat body guidance technique and the mental guidance technique were both confidential secrets of Bemand. They could not be imparted privately. However, Lin Feng was not the only person in this world who had a combat body. He immediately thought of the sea beasts in the Dead Sea of Abyss. They all had a certain simplified combat body. The Sea Emperor, on the other hand, had the true cultivation method for the combat body. Lin Feng immediately headed for the Dead Sea of Abyss and entered the Sea Emperor Palace. Stop! What are you trying to do? The sea beasts in the Sea Emperor Palace had a rather deep impression of Lin Feng. Every time Lin Feng came seemed to entail trouble. I'm here to request an audience with His Majesty the Sea Emperor. Lin Feng also appeared very polite. After all, the Sea Emperor had helped him before. His Majesty the Sea Emperor is already slumbering. If you have any request, you can speak to us. These sea beasts continued to stop Lin Feng. Ha! Lin Feng's gaze turned cold. He was being polite to the Sea Emperor, not to these sea beasts. Boom! Lin Feng waved his hand, and these sea beasts were sent flying. With Lin Feng's current strength, even without using his combat body, mere sea beasts were not his match. These sea beasts immediately became nervous. They all deployed their simplified combat bodies and surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng was not nervous at all. Instead, he said loudly, "Your Majesty, if you don't show yourself soon, I'm afraid all your subordinates will die. How dare you? A mere human acts so audacious. We'll see how you can escape this time." These sea beasts were furious. Some of the sea beasts had left the Sea Emperor Palace back then and had never seen Lin Feng's terrifying combat body, so they were all angered. Lin Feng snorted coldly and quickly used the tidal combat body, expanding it to 10 kilometers. The huge combat body emitted a suffocating and oppressive aura, causing the expressions of these sea beasts to change drastically. They were far from the match of just this 10-kilometer combat body. Suddenly, a sigh came from the Sea Emperor Palace. "All of you leave." The Sea Emperor had appeared. Although these sea beasts were unwilling, looking at Lin Feng's massive combat body, they knew that they were definitely not his match. They could only leave dejectedly. "Lin Feng, do forgive them. They have never left the Dead Sea of Abyss and might have never seen the sky outside their whole lives. They are the overlords of the Dead Sea and are naturally a little arrogant. Your Majesty is too courteous. I never held it against them." Lin Feng smiled. He was here to ask the Sea Emperor for a favor. How could he blame these sea beasts? "Lin Feng, why are you here this time?" "Your Majesty, I have a favor to ask of you this time. I've already given you the life core. If you still want more life core, I can only let you down." "No, I'm not here to seek the life core. I'm here to seek the cultivation method for the combat body and mental power." "Huh? Don't you have them?" The Sea Emperor's voice became slightly solemn. "I do have them, but these are all secrets that can't be imparted to others. I'm here to seek the cultivation method for the combat body on behalf of humanity." "Lin Feng, I've already given you the life core fragment. As for this combat body, please forgive me. This is a cultivation method for the combat body imparted by Master. I have no right to impart it." The Sea Emperor rejected him directly. "Then, does your Majesty have any other cultivation methods for the combat body?" "Any cultivation method for the combat body is fine." "No. If you can find other god kings from the first civilization, you might be able to find other cultivation methods for the combat body." Lin Feng fell silent. The first civilization had already been destroyed, and only the Sea Emperor was left. What other god king could there be? Lin Feng could actually understand why the Sea Emperor was unwilling. After all, Lin Feng also had the cultivation method for the combat body, but he could not impart it privately either. Actually, there was no reason for him to ask the Sea Emperor to impart it. However, this no longer concerned right or wrong, but the interests of the entire human race. "Your Majesty, the behemoth of Armageddon will awaken sooner or later. If we humans want to resist the behemoth of Armageddon, we need to have the corresponding power to resist it. This also benefits Your Majesty. Your Majesty can avoid the destruction of the previous civilizations, but how can you guarantee that you can avoid it every time? If the behemoth of Armageddon discovers the Dead Sea of Abyss, can your majesty still avoid it? Are you threatening me? The Sea Emperor's tone also turned cold, and even a little angry from humiliation. No, your majesty. By helping humanity, you are actually helping the Sea Emperor Palace. Lin Feng said firmly. No matter what kind of exaggerations you make, I won't teach the cultivation method of the combat body. Look, even the sea beasts under my command are only taught a simplified version of the combat body. It's a minor method I developed. Lin Feng was not too disappointed. He had already guessed that this trip would definitely not go so smoothly. In that case, Lin Feng could only use the last resort. Your Majesty, please forgive me. In an instant, Lin Feng's body expanded to 31 kilometers. Such a huge body shook even the Sea Emperor Palace. At the same time, Lin Feng grabbed at the Sea Emperor in the Sea Emperor court. Lin Feng, how dare you? The Sea Emperor roared loudly, and his massive body immediately moved. The Sea Emperor was actually a huge snake, but this huge snake's body was simply too massive. It instantly stood up from the Sea Emperor court. This was the first time Lin Feng had seen the Sea Emperor's true appearance. The Sea Emperor's combat body was at least 13 kilometers long. The aura on his body was clearly from 4 life transitions, far surpassing any enemy Lin Feng had encountered so far. You ungrateful human! The Sea Emperor was very furious, almost roaring. The entire Sea Emperor Palace was shaking from the wrath of the Sea Emperor, as if it would collapse at any moment. Looking at the Sea Emperor's furious appearance, Lin Feng was expressionless. He was indeed the one in the wrong in this matter. After all, it was thanks to the Sea Emperor giving Lin Feng a large amount of life core fragment that Lin Feng could undergo 4 life transitions. Yet now, he was here to coerce the Sea Emperor. If they really fought, although the Sea Emperor was not his match, the friendship between the two would probably be gone. Unless absolutely necessary, he would never coerce the Sea Emperor, let alone fight him. Your Majesty, this concerns the fate of humanity. Is there really no room for negotiation? Lin Feng's 31-kilometer combat body lay across the Sea Emperor Palace. This was actually a powerful deterrent. Boom! As the Sea Emperor's body stood up, the entire Sea Emperor Palace shook continuously. Room for negotiation? Lin Feng, it's not impossible to give you the combat body technique, but I need an equivalent exchange. Exchange? What do you want? Lin Feng was overjoyed. He really did not want to fight with the Sea Emperor unless it was absolutely necessary. Since the Sea Emperor had relented, that would be for the best. Allow me to comprehend the Spear of Destruction for a month. Moreover, if you can undergo 6 life transitions in the future and become a planetary life form, you'll have to help me. All right, it's a deal. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. Allowing the Sea Emperor to comprehend the Spear of Destruction would not bring any obstacles to Lin Feng. As for the second condition, even if the Sea Emperor did not mention it now, Lin Feng would not forget the favor of giving him the life core fragment. If he could really undergo 6 life transitions in the future, he would naturally help the Sea Emperor. Hence, Lin Feng gave the Spear of Destruction to the Sea Emperor directly. Although the annihilative power of the Spear of Destruction was very strong, the Sea Emperor had also undergone 4 life transitions and could manage to suppress the Spear of Destruction. Lin Feng was not afraid of the Sea Emperor stealing this origin weapon. After all, Lin Feng had already had preliminary control over the Spear of Destruction and could easily retrieve it. A month later, the Sea Emperor returned the Spear of Destruction to Lin Feng. I'll give you both the cultivation methods for the combat body and mental power. The Sea Emperor had given him the cultivation method for the combat body. With Lin Feng's insight, he could naturally tell that this was indeed the cultivation method for the combat body. Hence, Lin Feng said with exuberance, "Thank you, Your Majesty. In the future, if humans can contend with the behemoth of Armageddon, the Dead Sea of Abyss will always be the Sea Emperor's territory. Humans shall never interfere." With that, Lin Feng put away the title combat body and quickly left the Sea Emperor Palace. After obtaining the cultivation techniques for the combat body and mental power, Lin Feng held the Conference of Sages directly. Now, There were only 7 sages left, including Lin Feng. Sage Claws and Sage Cass had died in battle, and the sages seemed to have yet to come out of the gloom. Although Lin Feng's combat power was astonishing, humanity's overall strength was very weak. If Lin Feng could not resist the behemoth of Armageddon, what could humanity do to resist it? Sages. I held this conference of sages to announce a piece of good news. Lin Feng said directly, "Good news? What good news?" The other 6 sages were also curious. What good news could there be now? All the sages know that I have impressive combat power. I've only undergone 4 life transitions so far. So why does my combat power far exceed yours? I did obtain some kind of legacy, but it's not the legacy of an ancient civilization, but the legacy of the universe. A legacy from the universe? Many sages also became restless. They looked at each other, but there was a hint of anticipation in their eyes. How could they not know that Lin Feng had secrets? However, everyone had secrets. They would not take the initiative to investigate the secrets on Sage Lin Feng. After all, this was the bottom line. If they pursued it too closely, it was very likely that Sage Lin Feng would even turn against them. Hence, apart from Sage Batai back then, all the sages avoided mentioning the secret on Lin Feng. Now that Lin Feng had taken the initiative to mention it, there was only one possibility. Lin Feng would disclose the secret. As expected, Lin Feng continued, "That's right. The proper cosmic cultivation system I practice mainly cultivates the combat body and mental power. My massive body is actually the combat body. A relatively strong combat body with 2 life transitions can even rival a sage with 4 life transitions. This is the most dangerous moment for humanity. With the threat of the behemoth of Armageddon, I will publicize the cultivation methods for the combat body and mental power. Sages can cultivate and watch at will. However, sages have already undergone 4 life transitions, and their potential for cultivation is actually very weak. However, it is still of some effect for those martial artists who have just broken the genetic lock, or even undergone 2 or 3 life transitions, if they cultivate it." Lin Feng expressed his idea for the 6 major factions to jointly promote. Of course, they also needed to purchase it with merit value. Any precious cultivation technique had to be paid for. As for how to set the price to maximize the enthusiasm of martial artists for cultivation and rapidly increase the overall strength of humanity, this would require discussion from the sages. Lin Feng imparted the cultivation techniques for the combat body and mental power to the 6 sages. Although the 6 sages were martial artists, martial arts were all self-created. To be able to create their own martial arts and reach the point of 4 life transitions step by step would require astonishing talent. Hence, after they saw it, they were all very stunned. So there's mental power. An invisible mental power. This combat body actually doesn't cultivate astral power at all. The so-called astral power is just one of the sources of energy for the combat body. Terrifying, truly terrifying. The cosmic cultivation system can actually be so powerful. Planetary life forms. The 6 sages were completely blown away. This was a new door. A door they had never opened before. Now, Lin Feng's cultivation method for the combat body had opened this new door for them. Unfortunately, sages who had already undergone 4 life transitions had actually exhausted their potential. So what if they could undergo 5 life transitions and condense a combat body? It would probably be a combat body with the lowest tier of combat power, and they could never become planetary life forms. This cultivation method of the combat body gave many human martial artists hope. However, at the same time, it was actually very cruel to the 6 sages. They clearly knew the path ahead now, but they would never be able to advance. To the sages, this meant severing their path forward. If I had obtained the cultivation method for the combat body sooner, I would definitely be able to condense a combat body. Definitely. The invincible fist sage was very agitated. In fact, he had also doubted the path of martial arts before. Unfortunately, he could not create the cosmic cultivation system alone. In the end, he could only follow the path of his predecessors. Unexpectedly, it was a dead end. How cruel and despairing was it for a martial artist and a martial fanatic. Who would have thought that this is the true cultivation system? It's all my fault. Sage Kong heaved a long sigh. The way he looked at Lin Feng was also inexplicably complicated. Although martial arts were not created by Sage Kong, they were perfected by him to a great extent. The martial artists behind followed in his footsteps and became sages one after another. Once he had been proud of it. But now, Sage Kong felt that he was a sinner for allowing so many talented people to follow him down the wrong path. However, now that they had the cosmic cultivation technique, Sage Kong firmly believed that humanity would definitely see a huge boom. In the League of Guardians, Lin Feng was highly anxious. Today, Chu Chun was about to break the genetic lock. Boom! Suddenly, Lin Feng sensed a violent energy fluctuation coming from the secret chamber. That fluctuation was undoubtedly the fluctuation of the combat body. In order to allow Chu Chun to successfully break the genetic lock and condense the combat body, Lin Feng placed many energy modules accumulated in the League of Guardians in the secret chamber. About an hour later, Chu Chun came out of the secret chamber successfully. Was it a success? Lin Feng was a little nervous, but also a little happy. Brother Feng, you've already undergone 4 life transitions, and you're the #1 sage of humanity. Are you still worried about sister-in-law's first life transition? Don't worry, sister-in-law definitely succeeded. Xianxia also said with a smile. Chu Chin nodded slightly. Her face was slightly red as she said softly, "Everything went smoothly. I've successfully condensed the combat body." Hearing Chu Chen's answer, Lin Feng finally heaved a sigh of relief. "Qiji, Chanchin has already broken the genetic lock. You have to catch up too." Lin Feng turned around and said to Zhang Qiji. Zhang Qiji could only smile weakly. What else could he say? Although he managed the unofficial members of the League of Guardians in the past 2 years, after Lin Feng publicly disclosed a new cultivation system called the Combat Body Cultivation System, the League of Guardians immediately became hotly popular. Countless martial artists fought to join the League of Guardians as even its unofficial members. Hence, the fact that Zhang Qiji had yet to break the genetic lock also gave him a lot of pressure. "Brother Feng, I'll take my leave first." Zhang Qiji hurriedly left. Good grief, there was no knowing how long Lin Feng would lecture him for if he stayed here any longer. He was really scared of Lin Feng now. The brat! Lin Feng smiled. It had been 2 years since he held the last conference of sages was held, and publicly disclosed the cultivation method for the combat body. During this period of time, he and Chu Chun held a grand wedding. However, in order not to distract Chu Chun from breaking the genetic lock, they did not have children. Moreover, Long Betham had said that if Lin Feng's partner was not strong, he might even be childless. After all, Lin Feng had undergone 4 life transitions now. How powerful were his genes? Reproduction was actually rather difficult. Of course, if Chu Chun could undergo 2 or even 3 life transitions, it would not be so difficult for Lin Feng to have a child. "Lin Feng, it's all because of my lack of natural aptitude. If I could undergo 2 or even 3 life transitions, we would probably have had children long ago." No, don't blame yourself. Just cultivate without worries. With all these resources, there's no need to worry that you won't be able to undergo life transitions. Lin Feng consoled Chu Chin. Actually, Lin Feng was not too concerned about whether he had children. However, he was a little concerned about his inability to comprehend the law of tides. In particular, not only was he unable to comprehend the law of tides, his mental power had not made much of a breakthrough, and there was no sign of a life transition. For 2 whole years, Lin Feng had truly fallen into a bottleneck, and his strength had barely improved at all. This was a first for Lin Feng. He was also a little anxious. After all, 2 years was actually a very long time for Lin Feng. He had only spent 2 years to ascend from an ordinary professional martial artist to an expert with 4 life transitions, and even the current #1 sage of humanity. The other sages persuaded Lin Feng to relax. It had only been 2 years. How could anyone be constantly improving? However, Lin Feng felt a little anxious deep down. He had not forgotten the threat of the behemoth of Armageddon. So what if humanity was thriving and had attained unprecedented prosperity? They were still vulnerable against the behemoth of Armageddon. "Lin Feng, you're feeling uneasy. What are you worried about?" As the person closest to Lin Feng, Perhaps only Chu Chun could sense the uneasiness in Lin Feng's heart. Lin Feng looked at the sky and muttered in a low voice, "The crisis has never been resolved. I feel very uneasy. It's been 2 years, and I haven't improved at all. Chunchen, I'd like to go for a walk alone." "Where are you going?" Chu Chun was surprised. "I'm going out there for a walk in the city or the outland. Don't worry, I won't go to the Black Wind Canyon. I just want to find some tranquility, find the gratitude in my heart, and comprehend the law of tides." Lin Feng shared all his thoughts with Chu Chun. Although humans had combat bodies, Chu Chun and Longbetham were the only ones who really knew about laws. The two of them were the people Lin Feng trusted the most. Chu Chun heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as he was not going to the Black Wind Canyon. She was just afraid that Lin Feng would act rashly and enter the Black Wind Canyon recklessly. If he encountered the behemoth of Armageddon, things would get dangerous. She did not care about the greater good of humanity. As a woman, she only cared about the safety of the man she loved. "Go ahead. It's good to go out for a walk. You've worked hard for the past 2 years. No matter what you do, I'll support you," Chu Chun said magnanimously. In the past 2 years, she knew that as the top sage of humanity, Lin Feng had worked very hard. Not only did he have to manage the League of Guardians, he also had to worry about all the major matters of humanity. If his heart was not at peace, how could Lin Feng comprehend the law? Chu Chun was understanding and knew what Lin Feng wanted. Naturally, she would not stop Lin Feng. "Thank you. It's my greatest fortune to be with you in this life." The two of them held hands, their hearts filled with warmth. The next day, Lin Feng set off. He did not take the airship or fly. Instead, he changed his appearance and left the League of Guardians headquarters as an ordinary person. He entered the Guardian City first. This was the expanded city outside the League of Guardians headquarters. As the League of Guardians developed, the area within a radius of 1,000 miles had already been completely developed into prosperous cities. They were connected into agglomerations, and at the center was the League of Guardians headquarters. The population of the agglomeration even exceeded 100 million. Lin Feng sat on the intercity train and prepared to leave the Guardian City. This intercity train was completely suspended. The speed could reach more than 5 times the speed of sound. It was extremely fast, and even not inferior to the speed of some airships. These new technologies were all thanks to the technology imparted by the League of Guardians. In fact, Longbetham had intentionally disclosed them in the name of the League of Guardians. Lin Feng sat by the window. There were 3 girls opposite him. They looked rather valiant and were probably all martial artists. The 3 of them looked dejected. "I failed again this time. Why is it so difficult to enter the Guardian Academy? I've already failed 3 times. Ting Ting, you've only failed 3 times. My brother has failed 5 times. However, as long as you join the League of Guardians, the probability of breaking the genetic lock is more than 90%. My dream is to join the Guardian Academy and look up to the great First Sage. Although we still failed this time, let's work harder. At most, we'll just break the genetic lock directly. As long as we can break the genetic lock and condense the combat body before the age of 20, we can enter the Guardian Academy directly." The 3 girls appeared to be only 17 or 18 years old. Unexpectedly, they were already aspiring to join the Guardian Academy. "Why do you wish to join the Guardian Academy?" Lin Feng suddenly spoke, asking the 3 girls directly. The 3 girls were a little stunned. Why did they want to go to the Guardian Academy? This was a good question. They really didn't seem to have thought about this question properly. Why do we want to join the Guardian Academy? To join the League of Guardians, of course. I heard that the requirements for joining the League of Guardians are very stringent now. Many martial artists who have condensed combat bodies have to undergo multiple rounds of review if they want to join, and most of them will be screened out. However, as long as they enter the Guardian Academy and graduate successfully, they can successfully join the League of Guardians. That's right. We all want to join the League of Guardians. The purpose of the League of Guardians is to protect our family, our loved ones, and all of humanity. I want to protect my parents and my sister. They are everything to me. All the martial artists of the League of Guardians can go to the front line and fight with dire beasts. We look forward to joining the League of Guardians and becoming one of them. The three girls said their thoughts aloud without any reservations. Good, well said. When the other passengers in the train heard how the three 17 or 18-year-old girls were determined to join the Guardian Academy, they all cheered loudly and clapped. The three girls actually appeared a little awkward. Where was that person just now? The three girls came back to their senses and realized that the man in front of them had disappeared. They remembered that the man had asked them the question just now. Why had he disappeared in the blink of an eye? What is this? On the table was a golden card with the symbol of the League of Guardians. This is a special enrollment card. That's right. This is a special enrollment card of the Guardian Academy. Oh my God, that person just now was a mentor from the Guardian Academy, right? I heard that only mentors have special enrollment cards. That's not right. Only one person can be specially recruited with the mentor's special enrollment card. A special enrollment card that can recruit 3 people. The 3 girls could no longer imagine it. They hurriedly put away the card and looked around. But the man who left the card was nowhere to be seen. Lin Feng had long alighted from the intercity train. The special enrollment card just now could be considered a small reward for the 3 girls. He was a sage of the League of Guardians and had 10 special enrollment slots for the Guardian Academy every year. Leaving 3 spots for the 3 girls was not a big deal. In 2 years, the entire human society had undergone a sea change. Lin Feng became the first sage of humanity, and the League of Guardians became a holy land for humanity. Even the Guardian Academy established by the League of Guardians headquarters became the top academy. Everything related to Lin Feng and the League of Guardians had expanded rapidly in 2 years. Without a doubt, the current League of Guardians had already become the strongest faction of humanity. All of this was thanks to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was not prideful at all, however. He merely walked on quietly. He saw the smiles of every pedestrian on the streets and the focus of the students in schools. He also saw that many martial artists in the martial arts school who were not very talented were still practicing diligently. Life was so beautiful, and human society was so peaceful. How could Lin Feng allow the behemoth of Armageddon to destroy it? Lin Feng's conviction strengthened again. Lin Feng passed through one city after another. He walked aimlessly. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Unknowingly, Lin Feng had already arrived in Central Sea. His parents and family were all in Central Sea and were unwilling to go to the League of Guardians. So Lin Feng did not force the issue. Right now, the Lin family was one of the most powerful families in Central Sea. In fact, it was one of the most powerful families in the entire human world. Lin Feng was also extremely strict regarding family rules. Fortunately, his eldest brother, second brother, and little sister were not troublemakers. Hence, no profligate descendants appeared. After arriving in Central Sea City, Lin Feng did not intend to make a trip home. He just followed his heart and went wherever he wanted. When he arrived in Central Sea City, the first thing he thought of was Central Sea University. Hence, Lin Feng arrived at Central Sea University. There was a huge stone sculpture at the entrance of Central Sea University. When some new students entered the school, they would stop in front of the statue with a trace of reverence in their eyes. A smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. That was his statue. As the first sage of humanity, he had once studied at Central Sea University. How could Central Sea University pass up such a good opportunity for promotion? Thanks to the reputation of Lin Feng, the first sage of humanity, Central Sea University was now one of the top universities in the world. Lin Feng entered the university silently. The environment and atmosphere were still familiar, and the library was still there. Lin Feng even returned to the library, to the bookshelf where he had once obtained the genetic fusion device. This was the beginning, Lin Feng's beginning. Gradually, Lin Feng's state of mind became very peaceful without his knowing. Even Lin Feng himself was not aware of it. He followed his instincts completely and continued walking forward. After leaving Central Sea City, Lin Feng walked through many cities and encountered many sceneries. Occasionally, he would come across to 1 or 2 martial artists worth nurturing, and leave a special recruitment card behind. Could be considered a carefree journey. Gradually, Lin Feng arrived at Delta City again. This city was of extraordinary significance to Lin Feng, because his decision to take the path of martial arts began with this city. Delta City was prospering as much as it did 2 years ago. The Myriad Academy in particular had unparalleled prosperity. Moreover, due to Dongfang Shang, the Myriad Academy was destroyed. Afterwards, the Invincible Fist Sage borrowed some robots from Lin Feng to rebuild the Myriad Academy. The novel architectural style made the Myriad Academy the landmark of Delta. Lin Feng returned to the Myriad Academy and looked at the bustling crowd in the academy. Although this was the rebuilt academy, Lin Feng still found it very familiar. At the entrance of the academy, apart from the statue of the Invincible Fist Sage, there was another statue. It was naturally Lin Feng's statue. Even if Lin Feng had established the League of Guardians, he was still the pride of the Myriad Academy. Lin Feng walked through all the cities he had ever stayed in. He went to the Outland, Dragonlith City, Dragon Mountain Base, South Mountain Base, and North Mountain Base. Now, these bases no longer faced threats. The territory of humanity was constantly expanding. In particular, as Lin Feng passed down the cultivation method for the combat body, in just 2 years, the number of martial artists who had condensed the combat body increased exponentially. Now, there were already more than 3,000 martial artists who had condensed the combat body. Moreover, there were already 23 combat body martial artists who had undergone 2 life transitions. What did this mean? A combat body martial artist with 2 life transitions possessed the combat power of a sage. Even if it'd be the weakest sage, they still had the combat power of a sage, making them equivalent to 23 sages. How formidable was this power? They could almost dominate the Outland. If those dire beasts were demon emperors, these martial artists who had condensed their combat bodies could already deal with them. Moreover, if there were especially powerful demon emperors, Lin Feng would personally deal with them. Humanity seemed to be flourishing like never before. Lin Feng did not know how long he had been walking for. Perhaps a few months, perhaps a few years. He did not pay heed to the time. When he stopped by the sea, he stopped. He closed his eyes. This was a journey where his heart was most at peace. It was the journey he took to find empathy and tactility. His heart had never felt so peaceful. Boom! The waves of the sea crashed against the shore. In the azure sky, a flock of seabirds flew past. A fish leaped up in the waves, as if it was about to leap over the sea and through the sky. Lin Feng closed his eyes. In the unprecedented peace of his heart, there was finally a trace of movement. Buzz! The spear of destruction in Lin Feng's body suddenly shook and jumped out of Lin Feng's body. It constantly surrounded Lin Feng and trembled slightly. Traces of annihilative power wrapped around Lin Feng, but did not harm his body at all. Swoosh! Lin Feng opened his eyes. He reached out and grabbed. There seemed to be a gray stream of air in the void in his grasp. His expression became very strange, because he was all too familiar with this gray airflow. Now it was even more familiar. Annihilative power. Lin Feng muttered softly. He looked up at the sky, and a wan smile actually appeared on his lips. He passed through the cities and came to the Outland, calming his heart completely. He originally wanted to find an opportunity to comprehend the law of tides, even if only to the rudimentary level. But now, he had no clue about the law of tides, yet he had comprehended the law of annihilation. That's right. Just now, Lin Feng's mind was spiritual to the extreme. The spear of destruction in his body kept shaking. Then, strands of annihilative power quickly spread throughout his body. Just like that, Lin Feng comprehended the law of annihilation without any warning. His law of annihilation had already reached the rudimentary level. With a wave of his hand, Lin Feng could easily annihilate sages or those demon emperors without even using the power of his combat body. Even if they had undergone 5 life transitions, as long as they did not have a powerful combat body, Lin Feng could deal with them with just the rudimentary law of annihilation. However, those life forms that had not condensed their combat bodies were very weak to begin with. What could the rudimentary law of annihilation do to the behemoth of Armageddon? What Lin Feng had condensed was the tidal combat body. Reaching the rudimentary level of the law of annihilation did not have any effect on enhancing the tidal combat body. The only use might be that his control over the spear of destruction had greatly improved. In the past, it would have been very good if Lin Feng could unleash 1% of the spear of destruction's power. Now, Lin Feng might be able to unleash 1/10 of the spear of destruction's power by relying on the rudimentary law of annihilation. This was already very strong, but Lin Feng was not at all confident that he could deal with the behemoth of Armageddon. Of course, if his law of annihilation could advance further and reach the planetary level, things would be different. With just the law of annihilation, Lin Feng would have nothing to fear except planetary lifeforms. After all, the law of annihilation at the planetary level could already interfere with the operation of a planet. Moreover, the law of annihilation specialized in combat and destruction. It was very powerful in combat and destructive power. However, Lin Feng also knew how difficult it was to comprehend laws. Taking the law of annihilation from the rudimentary to the planetary level was even more difficult than Lin Feng undergoing 6 life transitions to become a planetary lifeform. Having comprehended the law of annihilation and reached the rudimentary level, Lin Feng also knew that his comprehension had ended this time. This journey of meditation had benefited him greatly, and he had obtained a very rare opportunity for comprehension. Such an opportunity could only be chanced upon by luck. Even if Lin Feng continued on the path of meditation, he probably would not encounter such an opportunity for comprehension again. Without opportunities for comprehension like this, it was almost impossible for Lin Feng to comprehend laws again. Although he had not been able to comprehend the law of tides, being able to comprehend the law of annihilation could allow Lin Feng to strengthen his control over the spear of destruction, and also greatly increased Lin Feng's combat strength. This could also be considered a huge gain. Hence, Lin Feng no longer concealed his identity. He walked directly into the air above the ocean, and made his return towards the direction of the League of Guardians headquarters. Ever since humans swept through the 4 forbidden places and only left the Black Wind Canyon behind, the Black Wind Canyon had been heavily monitored. A large number of martial artists were densely deployed outside the Black Wind Canyon, and it was monitored in real time every day. Perhaps even these monitoring martial artists did not know what was hidden in the Black Wind Canyon. At this moment, in a huge cave in the Black Wind Canyon, 5 demon emperors had gathered. However, unlike the previous few times when they took the initiative to gather in the Black Wind Canyon, this time, they were forced to flee to the Black Wind Canyon. Emperor Millspike, why are you in the Black Wind Canyon too? Why can't I come to the Black Wind Canyon? Heh! You were forced by humans to flee to the Black Wind Canyon, right? Pot and kettle. Didn't humans force you into the canyon too? The 5 demon emperors fell silent. They were actually very aggrieved. In the past, in the Outland, they had led several dire beast species, and were supreme demon emperors. How majestic was that? Those humans did not dare to invade them lightly, and they were the only ones who invaded the human territory. But now, the situation had completely changed. No one knew when humans had become so powerful, but their physical bodies seemed to be stronger than theirs. Often, when 2 or 3 human experts joined forces, they had no choice but to flee. Otherwise, they could only be killed by humans. They were all relatively lucky to have escaped to the Black Wind Canyon. The remaining demon emperors were either dead or captured. Although the dire beasts still had the absolute advantage in numbers in the Outland, the number of top-notch demon emperors was becoming fewer and fewer. If this continued, humanity would occupy the whole of Outland sooner or later. Damn humans for forcing us into this state. They don't dare to enter the Black Wind Canyon because they're afraid of the mysterious power in the Black Wind Canyon. Right? Although these demon emperors did not know about the behemoth of Armageddon, they had grown up in the Outland, and were practically the beings most sensitive to danger. They had sensed a terrifying aura in the Black Wind Canyon a long time ago, and had never dared to approach it too closely. In the past, they had gathered in the Black Wind Canyon precisely in attempts to figure out what exactly this dangerous aura was. However, they did not dare to go deeper. Now, the situation was different. They no longer had a place to stay. For a moment, bold thoughts also appeared in their minds. There's a terrifying, mysterious power in the Black Wind Canyon that scares even those humans. Why don't we enter and explore it? If we can obtain this power, we'll have no need to fear humans. That's right. We're in such a difficult situation now. We can't possibly stay in the Black Wind Canyon forever, right? Might as well take the risk. Isn't death the worst outcome? What's the difference between this and falling into the hands of humans? In any case, we'll die if we go out. If we venture in, we might still have a chance of survival. The 5 demon emperors gritted their teeth and made their decision. Hence, the 5 demon emperors walked towards the huge cave in the Black Wind Canyon together. The cave was very deep, and there was the faint sound of wind. The deeper they went, the colder they felt. After walking for about a few hours, the 5 demon emperors suddenly felt their vision open up. They were in a vast underground hall. However, the sense of danger in the depths of their hearts was becoming stronger and stronger. It was almost at the critical point, and they could not suppress their fear. Why are we so afraid? It's as if danger is imminent. Where are we now? It looks like an underground hall. But why is the road not flat and somewhat soft? The demon emperors looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Even though they were demon emperors, they still felt deep fear when they came to this inexplicably dangerous Black Wind Canyon. However, what worried them even more was that they could not find the source of their fear at all. No, under our feet. Suddenly, one of the demon emperors seemed to have discovered something. Even its voice appeared to be trembling with fear. This is? The 5 demon emperors were shocked. They hurriedly looked at their feet and realized that apart from the soil, there was a layer of something soft and flesh-like below. Retreat, retreat quickly. The 5 demon emperors were not stupid. They hurriedly retreated until they returned to the cave tunnel they had come down from. When they reached the tunnel, they headed forward carefully, especially the ground they had stepped on just now. Looking from afar, they suddenly had a bold guess. Does this look like lips? Lips? Such huge lips. If it really has such huge lips, how massive is the body of this terrifying entity? The 5 demon emperors were truly shocked. They had seen the combat bodies used by those humans. Although they were also huge, they paled in comparison to this mysterious life form in front of them. Of course, the premise was that this was really a mysterious life form, and those were really lips. Wouldn't we know if we give it a try? If it's really a dire beast, a true ruler might be born among us. That's right. We dire beasts are just too disorganized, and not as united as humans. However, the fundamental reason is that none of us are willing to submit to another. There is no true ruler. Even if this is a ruler, and we all become its subordinates after it awakens, that's still much better than being killed by humans. Then let's give it a try. The 5 demon emperors also made their decision. Even though this was very dangerous and they did not know what would happen, could it be worse than being hunted down by humans? Gore. Hence, the 5 demon emperors roared at the sky. At the same time, their massive bodies quickly cleared the soil on the ground. However, no matter how they roared, this behemoth did not seem to move at all. These demon emperors were not discouraged. They began to quickly clean the soil off the mysterious creature. As they cleaned deeper, they became more and more certain that this must be an extremely massive and terrifying behemoth. It turned out that they had come here from the cave precisely to the head of this terrifying behemoth. Just the behemoth's lips alone were probably dozens of kilometers in size. The head was as boundless as the ocean. That was just the head. How massive would the body of the behemoth be? They could barely believe their eyes. Perhaps the entire Black Wind Canyon, and even thousands of kilometers below, was filled with the body of this behemoth. This was too terrifying. What kind of behemoth could grow to such a massive size? However, despite their fear, the 5 demon emperors still wanted to try their best to wake this behemoth. Hence, they stepped on the behemoth's body, its lips, noses, eyes, ears, and so on. They all tried everything they could think of to wake the behemoth. The 5 demon emperors even attacked it. They unleashed their full strength, but they could not even break the behemoth's skin. Could this behemoth already be dead? Impossible. If it's dead, how can its corpse be so well preserved? It'd probably have long turned into a skeleton. It must be because we haven't found the right method. Let's look more carefully. There was nothing special about the behemoth. On the other hand, it was very unusual that this cave could extend all the way to the behemoth's head. What's this? Suddenly, a demon emperor discovered a thumb-sized scarlet crystal on the ground. It appeared crystalline and had a bizarre air. Let's search for more of it. The 5 demon emperors continued to search. As expected, they found some scarlet crystal fragments around. Most of them were very tiny, and none of them were complete. There seemed to be a strange power within them. There's a strange power in these scarlet crystals. Let's throw them into the behemoth's mouth. The 5 demon emperors did not recognize these scarlet crystals. They all grew slowly, and only after hundreds or thousands of years did they grow into demon emperors. Although they did not know how miraculous these scarlet crystals were, these scarlet crystals containing strange power were definitely extraordinary since they were found near the behemoth. Hence, these demon emperors gathered the dozens of thumb-sized scarlet crystals and threw them right into the behemoth's mouth. They did not know if the behemoth could devour these scarlet crystals, but this was all they could do. Hence, after throwing the scarlet crystal into the behemoth's mouth, the few demon emperors hurriedly retreated to the tunnel of the cave to observe the behemoth carefully. There's still no effect. Half an hour had passed, but there was still no movement from the behemoth. The 5 demon emperors were all very disappointed. They had already done their best and tried everything they could, but still could not wake the behemoth. Buzz. Suddenly, there was a slight tremor in the cave. Even though it was very slight, the 5 demon emperors could clearly feel it. Wait! There's movement! The 5 demon emperors all had excited expressions. They could clearly see the behemoth's eyes. They seemed to be trembling slightly. Although it was very subtle, they were indeed trembling. At the same time, a faint gray airflow rose from the behemoth's body and filled the entire cave. However, the 5 demon emperors could not see it at all. The shaking became more and more intense, but the behemoth still showed no signs of getting up. Swoosh! Suddenly, the gray airflow swept over and enveloped the 5 demon emperors. However, the 5 demon emperors did not sense it at all. Then, the gray airflow spread into the demon emperors' bodies at once. Immediately, the demon emperors' bodies began to rot and fade away. What is this? No, we woke you up. We woke you up. The 5 demon emperors were all terrified. They could only watch helplessly as their bodies disappeared bit by bit. This was simply bizarre to the extreme. However, they had no way to resist. Seeing their bodies turn to ashes, how could they not know that this must be the doing of the behemoth in front of them? They did not understand. They were the ones who had awakened the behemoth. Why did it want to kill them when fighting? Of course they did not understand, for this behemoth was born to annihilate, to destroy. Rumble. As the tremors of the behemoth's body became more and more intense, when the bodies of the 5 demon emperors were completely reduced to ashes, the behemoth's eyes opened. A terrifying aura surged into the sky, and the behemoth's huge head slowly rose. The entire Black Wind Canyon seemed to have suffered a magnitude 10 earthquake. It shook violently, and even caused all the surroundings of the Black Wind Canyon within a radius of 1,000 miles to shake violently. Suspected earthquake in the Black Wind Canyon. The martial artists who were closely monitoring the Black Wind Canyon immediately reported this information. There was no need to report the news of the earthquake in the Black Wind Canyon up the chain of command. It was directly summarized and sent to the 7 sages. The 7 sages took the news of the Black Wind Canyon very seriously. As long as there was any movement, the information had to be reported to the 7 sages. An earthquake in the Black Wind Canyon? Sage Kang's expression changed abruptly. Without any hesitation, he stood up and took an airship to the League of Guardians headquarters. Sage Kang was not alone. The other 6 sages behaved similarly. After receiving the news of the earthquake in the Black Wind Canyon, they all rushed to the League of Guardians headquarters as quickly as possible. In the League of Guardians, as a sage, Lin Feng naturally received the news about the Black Wind Canyon immediately. Earthquake. A trace of emotion finally appeared on Lin Feng's calm face. Is it finally coming? Lin Feng closed his eyes slightly. His emotions became tense at this moment. Very few things could make Lin Feng nervous now. Without a doubt, any change in the Black Wind Canyon could affect Lin Feng's emotions. At the same time, the other 6 sages all sent messages that they would rush to the League of Guardians headquarters. About 2 hours later, at the League of Guardians headquarters, the 6 sages alighted from the airships with solemn expressions. The 7 sages all arrived at the conference hall of the League of Guardians. Sage Lin Feng, how is it going? As soon as the 6 sages arrived at the League of Guardians headquarters, they asked nervously. Everyone, please watch the video. Hence, Lin Feng opened the video. It was a video on the Black Wind Canyon. From the video, intense earthquakes had occurred within a radius of thousands of kilometers, with the Black Wind Canyon as the center. Moreover, the tremors were very strong. This was definitely not an earthquake. This was because the tremors became stronger and stronger. It lasted for 2 hours. No earthquake could behave like this, where tremors would become stronger and stronger while continuing for over 2 hours. Sage Lin Feng, has the behemoth of Armageddon awakened? Sage Kong asked in a low voice. This might be the worst outcome. Lin Feng closed his eyes and said softly, we must be prepared for the worst. All the sages' hearts skipped a beat. Being prepared for the worst likely meant facing the behemoth of Armageddon. This was despite the fact that the human world had developed rapidly over the recent years, and humanity showed signs of dominating the world now. There was no knowing how many demon emperors had been expelled and killed. The Outland was no longer the territory of the dire beasts. Humanity was rapidly expanding its territory. However, the sages still felt heavy-hearted, because the behemoth of Armageddon was a terrifying behemoth that could destroy civilizations. Even Sage Lin Feng, humanity's only hope, had yet to undergo 5 life transitions. This made the sages even more worried. And now their worry was about to become reality. In the name of the 7 sages, gather 23 combat body martial artists with 2 life transitions immediately. Follow us to the Black Wind Canyon. Lin Feng gave the order. He was now the first sage of humanity, and his prestige among humans was greater than even Sage Kang's. No one would disobey his orders. However, if they wanted to mobilize 23 combat body martial artists with 2 life transitions, the 7 sages must give the order jointly. The other 6 sages also nodded without any hesitation. They knew that the moment of life or death had arrived. Hence, all of them ordered the combat body martial artists with 2 life transitions under their faction to gather at the League of Guardians headquarters. As the 7 sages gave the order jointly, it evoked a reaction in the entire human society, especially among martial artists. Combat body martial artists was the uniform title Lin Feng used for martial artists who cultivated the combat body after disclosing its cultivation method. Although a few years had passed, there were still relatively few martial artists who could truly cultivate the combat body. This was especially the case for combat body martial artists who had undergone 2 life transitions. Their combat power was close to that of sages. Hence, the status of these combat body martial artists was also rather high, much higher than ordinary metadivine realm martial artists. Every martial artist with a 2nd life transition was in a high position and held great authority. Most of them were at the front line of the Outland, hunting down demon emperors. Emergency order? Some combat body martial artists did not know the reason, but the sages had given the supreme order, so they could only obey it. Supreme order? Go to the League of Guardians headquarters immediately. In reality, the 23 combat body martial artists who had undergone 2 life transitions did not quite understand this order. What could make the sages so anxious? Ever since they learned about the cultivation method of the combat body and became combat body martial artists, everything had basically been smooth sailing. Even the once insufferable demon emperors were defeated under their combined attacks. Although humanity had yet to occupy all the territories, no dire beast was a match for humanity anymore in the entire Outland. Given the general trend, they felt that it was only a matter of time before humanity occupied the Outland. The 7 high and mighty sages had never been so anxious before. In particular, the fact that they were gathered at the League of Guardians headquarters was even more intriguing. Could something have happened to Sage Lin Feng? When the 23 combat body martial artists arrived, they all saw the surprise in each other's eyes. There were only 23 combat body martial artists with 2 life transitions in the entire human race. Most of them actually knew each other. If so many combat body martial artists were summoned at once, the matter was probably very grave. Swoosh! Suddenly, 7 sages appeared, led by Sage Lin Feng. Faced with the authority of sages, even these prodigious martial artists with 2 life transitions had to show respect. Everyone, board the airship and go to the Black Wind Canyon. Black Wind Canyon? Lin Feng's words made all the combat body martial artists' expressions change slightly. Although they had never heard of the behemoth of Armageddon, it did not stop them from analyzing the uniqueness of the Black Wind Canyon from some clues. Among the 4 forbidden places, only the Black Wind Canyon and the Dead Sea of Abyss forbade combat body martial artists from entering lightly. In particular, many martial artists were specially sent to monitor the Black Wind Canyon in real time. It seemed like there was some terrifying existence in the Black Wind Canyon. Although they were filled with doubts, they did not dare to ask questions now. They could only follow the 7 sages into a large airship. The large airship quickly took off and left the League of Guardians headquarters. In the airship, Lin Feng looked at these young martial artists and said calmly, "You can contact your families now. Treat it as a farewell. No one can guarantee that you can return alive." Boom! Lin Feng's words immediately caused an uproar in the airship. The young combat body martial artists all wanted to know why. Lin Feng did not say anything else. Sage Kong and the others would naturally explain the matter. He looked out the window. This time he did not bid farewell to Chu Chun. Perhaps he could not bear to, or perhaps he was not confident at all. The behemoth of Armageddon weighed heavily on Lin Feng's heart like a huge rock. Now, no matter how unwilling he was, he had to face it. The airship disappeared into the sky in the blink of an eye. Perhaps the members of the League of Guardians had not sensed anything yet. Chu Chun, however, stood outside the door and looked at the disappearing airship. Silent tears were already streaming down her face,